you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
This is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are things that makes official. Welcome to 16 years and 2,800 episodes, almost 2,900 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. We're bringing the most amazing minds, the most amazing stories, the most amazing journeys of life, things that can help you improve the quality of your life. We don't even bring stuff on this show that will ruin your life, just things that will improve it. Although, I don't know, some of the stories I tell probably are mind-numbingly boring at this point because you probably heard them 50,000 times. But anyway, so is Howard Stern. Give me a break. He does the same jokes and scenarios all the time too. So anyway, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today's featured author comes to us from bookstolifemarketing.co.uk. With expert publishing to strategic marketing, they help authors reach their audience and maximize their book success. Today, an amazing young lady on the show. We're going to be talking about her book of selected poems. We're going to get into it with her. Her book is entitled Passion and Provocation, Selected Poems by Judith Partelow. We're going to find out more about some of the poetry she does and some of the work she does to help other people maybe find solace and fulfillment in life doing their own poems too. As well. Poems are kind of always an interesting storytelling way of sharing our stories. She's a poet. I don't know what that first word was. A poet, short story, essay, memoir, journalist, reviewer, theater, film actress, director, producer, playwright, and featured published poet with honors for her poetry throughout the years. She's a member of Actors Union SAG-AFTRA and Actors Equity. She lives in Cape Cod with her writer husband. Cape Cod, that's a beautiful place to be a writer there. Probably lots of inspiration. Welcome to the show, Judith. How are you?
I am great, thank you. How are you?
I am excellent. Just getting started here on the Monday morning. And give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the websites?
JudithPartelow.com. That's it.
That's it. That's all you need, folks. You just go there and then buy the book, and you're good to go. Buy 20 of them. Give them away as friends. Judith, give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your book, Passion and Provocation?
It's stories of my life, different periods of my life, but I have found that so many people can relate to them, that it's not just my life. It's basically everyone has situations that they've experienced when they relate to my poems. It's really very fascinating for me. I never thought that so many people would find such emotional presence in my poetry. And I'm really so pleased that happens. So I think people should, they would find things. I have 9 different sections and about love and loss and longings and domestic issues, things about writing, tributes, spiritual contemplations, memories, and sense of place. The book is divided up into 9 sections. So there's something for everyone.
Isn't it interesting how our lives, we all kind of sometimes think we're our own special little unicorn, or we're doing our own things that maybe no one else does or whatever. But, it's always interesting, life. We share our stories of life because that's kind of the owner's manual to life, as I like to call it. They're the fabric of our lives. And so it's interesting when we share our stories, how much we find out that we're not alone. We're not isolated. A lot of people have the same sort of similar trials and tribulations as they go through life. And so we can identify with people's stories and learn from other stories. And sometimes people have blueprints of how they survive certain things, episodes of life. and got through those conundrums, and they can share, hey, I went through this too. I think we had a cancer survivor on last month, and he was like, yeah, it was really bad, terminal cancer, and I found a way to survive. And, that's really important because we all kind of want to survive. Yeah.
So many people, especially women, have said to me that they can't believe how vulnerable I am in my poetry, that I've expressed things they have always felt, but never could possibly say. And that's really interesting to me, that because I haven't written for other people. I've written for basically from my heart for myself. And I think that's people relate to the truth of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're all human. I mean, it's all a human experiment when it really comes down to it that we're involved in. And I don't know what the experiment is all about, but we should talk to some people. So in writing this book, you've been writing for a long time as a poet. Let's lay a foundation on that. Tell us a little bit about some of your history. When did you start writing poetry? And you've done quite well. You've gotten published, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks. It's really a kind of a sweet story that I have, because I was I believe it was third grade when I woke up very early one morning, and there was a poem in my head. I didn't even know it was a poem, I think. And I wrote it down. It was to my mother for Mother's Day. And it just came out of me. And I took it into school to show my teacher to see if she thought it was good enough to give to my mother for Mother's Day. Oh. And my teacher, when she looked up at me, she had tears in her eyes, and she said, "May I give it to my mother too?"
Wow. What a powerful first experience there.
Absolutely. Throughout my young years, I was writing little ditties and things like that. But then in high school, and specifically in college, I started really writing seriously. And then throughout, I have been writing.
What do you find it gives to you? Do you find it helps you? Some people journal on a daily basis. Some people write music, and a lot of these things are maybe expressions of what we're feeling or going through, or, they're, thoughts that we have maybe in the moment. What do you find drives you? Was there any inspiration for any other poetry maybe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many situations. When I was traveling on the train between Norwalk, Connecticut and Manhattan for 3 years, back and forth, I had an opportunity to observe so many people. And I have several poems in my book about that kind of situation, couples who really only are couples when they're on the train, talking together and laughing and, spending that short amount of time. But sometimes it's more time than they spend at home. There are those poems. There are poems about a little bit about soldiers, the military, and just people in general, where I go and what I see and how it relates to me. And then a certain line might come to me, and I'll think, oh boy, I have to write this. And I get it down and I start writing.
Yeah.
So it's really, that's the way I journal.
Uh-huh. It's so important that you keep writing utensils by your side, by the bedside, and something you can scratch down ideas. I write a lot of emails to myself on the fly when I'm on the road, but it's so important to capture that moment. When that voice. And sometimes you try and recapture it later, and if you have written the stuff down, it's kind of lost.
Absolutely. That's what I tell people when I'm doing my readings. I tell people that if they think of something, if it sparks a memory, to jot it down immediately. Don't worry about being rude. You're not. I want you to remember something, because that's the satisfaction I get from you listening to my poetry.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've won, I think, several awards, and you've been published and stuff. And with the book, what was the aha moment? Is this your first book of poetry? And when did you start writing?
I had a couple of chapbooks that were, just a few poems, not too many. And then I really felt like I wanted to collect I had so many, and I really didn't want them to get lost. And, I have children, and I thought, I'm going to put these all together into a book, and I hope my children will enjoy them. It'll tell a lot about me, especially when I'm gone. They'll know more about me, perhaps. That was my motivation. But then I couldn't believe it when when it was being launched and marketed and I was doing readings and everything, how people were so moved and told me that I had to do more readings. I had to do more with it. So it's been a journey in my life, but also a real happiness in my older age to see that this has come to fruition.
And how would you summarize your collection that you have of what you've written so far? How would you define that?
Yeah, I have a little, what I call my little promo, and it's prepubescent girls gather in the playground and whisper dark secrets. A maiden aunt claims she's only seen one naked man. A young Marine leaves the gully to get more ammunition. These and other memories are from the poetry of a baby boomer, covering subjects of love and loss, aging and death, from World War II to the Twin Towers and beyond.
Oh, wow. That sounds like some interesting storytelling. Now I really want to find out what some of these details are here. What do you hope people come away with when they read your book?
I really hope that they will realize that other people have felt some of the deep emotions they have felt, that it's okay to express things honestly because people can relate to you more when you do. It's not a false kind of face that you see before you. It's somebody that is expressing their heart and their mind. And anyway, and I think a lot of my poems are about love, different kinds of love, and loss. I have had 2 divorces, and I have a 3rd wonderful marriage. But there were a lot of aspects of those other marriages and that other life that were very important. I think people can relate to, many aspects of my life and hopefully theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting how much, we're all pretty similar in life experience. Now, did you want to share one of your poems with us?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you. I had a couple of thoughts. One is called Morse Code. And it was basically about a man I had a deep crush on at one point in my life. So this is it. Morse Code. If glances were currency, I've spent a fortune on your face. When I look into your eyes, my pulse begins to race. I'm telegraphing all my thoughts of love and wish, my love, you'd telegraph a message back to me. I don't dare speak the words for fear you'd laugh, and you probably won't guess this is for you. So my love will have to come to you in code. Should I tap it on your window, tap it with my pen, or tap it with my spoon against a glass? I would do it any way you want it. And if you understand, you could have this woman's heart if you tapped a Morse code back upon her hand.
What a story there. What a story there. It's pretty interesting. What is the length and format of the book? You said I think there was several sections.
I'm sorry, say that again?
What's the length and format of the book? You mentioned there are several sections.
9 sections. I kind of mentioned before, but there are 154 poems.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of poems.
It's 200 and something, 13 or something like that pages. I don't know if you have a picture of it, but it looks like this. I don't know if that's showing properly. Maybe not.
We'll have a picture of it in the final version.
Oh, good.
Very good.
But at first I thought I should do it chronologically, but so many sections overlapped, I mean, it's hard to do childhood without doing, mother love and father love and different kinds of things like that. And then there are domestic issues in the mom in the kitchen cooking, and how I, as an adult, have taken so much from what she would create, casseroles out of things that we had left over that turned out to be wonderful. My mother always tried to please my father with some desserts, and when there wasn't anything, she would put a little bit of grape jelly on the side. It was so much overlaps, and the love and the loss and the longing and the tributes. So anyway, people, once I realized I couldn't do it chronologically, I decided themes were more important. And so the kind of the progression of my life through college and work life, marriages, children, parents, that kind of thing. Yeah. That's how I decided to do it.
Why do you feel so many people resonate with your poetry?
It's been a real surprise to me. As I said, there are things that they find. I talk about motherhood, and there are stresses with motherhood, and I have a little poem that has moved a lot of people about that. We love our children, but they can be difficult at times, or it can cause our life to be one, focused in one direction. There's that kind of thing. People relate to troubles with marriage, with love and celebration of marriage, crushes and longing and flirtations. They come away with a feeling that there is so much to life, and it's so wonderful to remember some of it through others' poetry.
Yeah. We certainly appreciate you coming by. The one thing I was going to ask you about, you do some poetry workshops, I think, on your website, right?
I do. Well, I announce them on my website, but I also can do them in person or on Zoom. And you can write to me. My email address is on my website, but it's judithpartelow@gmail.com. And I would be happy to set up with a book club, librarians, baby boomer, any kind of group or an individual who really enjoys listening to poetry. I have an Audible poetry, but I read my book on Audible, and I also have it on ebook as well as the paperback. So there are several ways to experience it, but you can also have it live with me if you would like.
And what do you find helps people with poetry, and maybe learning it or exercising it and mastering it?
I think it helps people because it triggers their memories. If you're listening to a poem and suddenly it brings back something from your own childhood, or something between you and your parents, or something when you were in the military, there can be so many things. And I have had a lot of older people thank me so much for helping them to remember things that they thought they had forgotten. And if they write them down, if they write some of the things down, they can develop it further or maybe not, but it will help them to keep it and remember it.
This is one of the things I find is my challenge as I grow older. I finally started, the breadth of life where, it's some of the early stuff that gets lost and disappears a little bit. It used to be I had a pretty good super memory, but and stuff comes back. And like you mentioned, I think during the show, sometimes with poems and writing, it helps you remember some certain things about your life and reflect. And I find a lot of times my writing will trigger those emotions or those childhood memories or youth memories, and some of the different experiences that you had there. And so it's a great way to capture and record that. It sounds like it's probably maybe a good exercise, as we get older, we're all trying to avoid dementia and Alzheimer's and brain fog. And, some of these things can sharpen the mind, give it a good exercise and workout. And and keep us on point, maybe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It really is important. Just trying to remember language and come up with new words and, sharpen your memory. It's absolutely important.
Yeah, it's a good healthy thing, and it's in sharpening the memory. Sometimes looking back and reflecting on these things really help us learn. I think it's almost like a form of journaling a little bit, and getting this stuff on paper, and sometimes I've had things thoughts where it's remind you. I have ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and so when I'm trying to remember something, it'll drive me crazy, but if I write it down, then it's okay. He's got that down, so he's not going to lose it. We don't have to keep reminding him, and I find that really helps calm the brain. And I think that maybe when you write poetry, you have to be present. And we go through so much rush of our lives where we're just fighting to stay present in the moment. Sometimes we're just operating on autopilot, and so I think bringing us back to being present in writing and poetry. That could be something that can really help kind of reground us in life again.
Right. A lot of people think, oh, poetry, I did that in school. You have to rhyme. And that is not true. You don't have to rhyme. Sometimes there are poems that work themselves out that way. But there are so many different ways that you can write poetry in a paragraph, there is no right way, really. It's your own way, your own voice. And that's what I really try to share with people. And I have so many different forms of poems in my book, that some dialogue or some they're called list poems, where you have thoughts of different places or different beautiful things that you love to think about or you want to write down, in your life. There are so many different forms, and people shouldn't be afraid to just try and put some of their thoughts down. Maybe they'll surprise themselves. I know a lot of people I've worked with have surprised themselves incredibly.
Yeah. I mean, when you reflect on life, you take time to be present, you get kind of time to spend with your thoughts, your emotions, and your experiences. And, I do this thing called Gratitude for Gratefulness Day, which is a bit much to say, but Gratitude for Gratefulness Day. It's where I also call it Grounding Day and Archives Day. So it's a day where I reflect on my life. I kind of assemble all the pictures of my dogs and my family and, archive them, put them in different places. But it's a day where I try and, be reflective. I have some peace on that day where I can have some quiet time, and sometimes I'll go to dinner and sit by the lake on a patio and eat some wonderful food, or sometimes I'll travel someplace and just kind of try and get out of my environment so I can kind of see outside the box more and reflect on what my life is doing. I think it's so important. Maybe I should try writing poems when I'm sitting by the lake eating.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. Wonderful, Chris. Good practice.
Yeah. The only problem is I wrote poems when I was young, actually, about fourth grade, about your age, I think, when you were third or fourth grade.
Yeah, starting.
And it's kind of interesting how we kind of woke up around then. I think I was inspired by Dr. Seuss a lot, and some of the kind of poetic books. Like I remember one of my favorite books was, what was that one with the big ogre and the thing? I don't know. I don't remember, but
I think there's
a boy and an ogre, and he lives in where the wild things are.
Yes, I think so. Yes,
I think that was
probably people in your audience are shouting, what it is.
Yeah, and not the Metallica song, folks, but the book. But I think there was some prose to it that was, if I'm using the right word, that was kind of poetic. Or some of those books, that I read, their childhood books, they kind of had a real simple syntax of delivery. It was kind of poetic. Mm-hmm. And so I think that inspired me somewhere to write these goofy little poems. And I'd write poems about the people in my class. And then we would have this get up and everyone would read their poems thing. And, I'd write little funny limericks about certain different people. And it was kind of fun. I still have a couple. I wish I'd saved more of them. I would type them out on the typewriter in a little 3x5 card. And
oh boy.
yeah,
That's
I was
terrific.
They're doing the typewriter stuff, probably the hand man at
Yeah.
typewriter class yet. So, you have 2 other books, I think. Tell us about those.
Okay. The first chapbook was A Woman's Heart. And I actually took the poetry, a lot of my poetry, and I turned it into a play called A Woman's Heart. And I had 3 or 4 people in it, depending on when I did it, but I was in it too. And the whole play was made from my poetry, but I turned it into scenes because I have directed and I've written some plays. And I thought it would be interesting if people could hear these in a sort of way that people were having a conversation. So it was acted out, and some people didn't even realize it was poetry, but it was an interesting stage production. So we had a lot of success with that. There were 6 productions on Cape Cod, actually, and with, standing ovations, which was wonderful.
Oh, wow.
My second chapbook was Carry Me Back, A Woman's Life in Poetry. And that, again, it was a shorter book, but I took all the poems from both of those books, besides many others, and I put them into this Passion and Provocation, which is really the only one that's available now. The others haven't been reprinted. Passion and Provocation, and it's available, of course, on Amazon.
You can get her books and all that good stuff. How many poems throughout your whole life would you estimate maybe you've written?
Oh my Lord. I have a drawer full. I have folders full. So many. Every once in a while, I pull one out and I think, oh, this looks pretty good. I think I'll revive it, try to...
Do you re-edit them and maybe...
reformat and things like that, and add a little more or take a little out. But I really do. I have, I could say 300 at least. But I haven't counted. So
wow.
So there are probably going to be more for another book sometime. But right now, I'm happy with this.
How did you decide which poems to put in the books and which ones to leave out?
That's a good question. I brought as many as I could find to my dining room table, and I divided them into, at first, as I said, chronologically. I tried to do childhood, going to school, college, high school, college, that kind of thing, adult. Eventually, when I realized it had to be thematic, I started putting those files together into sections, and there were some that really seemed to stand out as being good book material, and others that were a little bit too trite or not exactly interesting. So I would not put those in. And then ordering them I sort of tried to get a gradual format in each section for the poems to make it seem reasonable, not to jump back and forth so much between different situations, but to try to smoothly work your way along. In fact, I really feel like people can pick it up and look at one section or another that seems to interest them. But if you do go through it carefully, you get to see the whole picture, essentially, of a life well lived, is what it's been called.
Life well lived. It's poems are such a great way. Storytelling is such a great way. You should do I'm just an idea guy. They pay me $5 a day to be an idea guy. So I try and make my $5. So I got an idea for you. You should maybe have a mastermind Zoom group where people can call in internationally or maybe nationally, and you can do your poem workshops. For people.
That would be great.
Yeah. And it might be great. Like I say, older folks really struggle now with loneliness, and being retired is a great time to reflect on your life and think about things. And, we just had the retired General Mark Hertling on the show last week. Him and I were talking about, some of our memories of our fathers and how much fathership impacts especially a man's life, and I know it impacts daughters as well. But as men, we kind of our father is kind of like that sample that we're supposed to go, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be like this guy, and we automatically pick up that influence just by assimilation and being in proximity. And we get those blueprints of relationships and fathers and mothers in that experience as children. But, we were talking about it. And, as I go through my life, there are moments where I'm like, oh man, I'm in my 50s. I'm tired. I'm napping all the time. I remember when we were kids, we used to tease my dad, oh, you're always napping, Dad. What the hell? Are we wearing you out? We give him shit. And he'd be like, just wait till you get my age of 40s and you'll understand.
That's right.
Napping. And we were like, oh, yeah, whatever, Dad. Boy, when I hit my 40s, man, I was like, oh, here's where the old man was at. And it's kind of interesting. I will compare my journey. I don't know if I imagine women do this with their mothers, but I compare myself a lot of times throughout life. Sometimes when I'm going through an experience, like, I'm really experiencing brain fog and kind of slowing down a little bit and off my game, misfiring a little bit sometimes. And I'll be like, geez, this is where my dad was, Now I kind of understand why he was kind of going through what he was going through, because I'm going through it now. And I don't know that I'm doing better than he did. And, it gives us time to reflect on all this.
I know. I'm doing a series of poetry workshops at a retirement home.
Yeah.
And I have some regulars. And one man is 91, I think he is. With such a sad life, really. But he's been so grateful for this opportunity to express his own life through poetry or just essays too. We do some writing with essays, and he hugs me at the end of the workshop and says, "Thank you so much," because it's just keeping his memory alive and helping him to share his experiences. It's just so heartwarming. I feel so moved by that.
Yeah. I mean, what a wonderful thing. And I could see, like I said, a lot of people get depressed and alienated if they live alone and, Zoom or other different things, but just even buying your books and kind of learning some of the stuff. Maybe, I don't know if you ever thought about doing an instruction book on how to write poetry or how to write poetry in the way you found is most effective. I imagine there's some different ways.
Yeah, I haven't tried that. I talk about it. Yeah. I do many workshops in different styles with different groups of people. So I do point out different ways. I bring a lot of styles of poetry, and we all kind of work on them. I've also done a series where I read one section at a time and we go through the book, and something like an 8-week course because we talk about each one, and I give them the background of the poem, and they ask questions where they relate to it and they tell me about their experiences. So it is something that could be a program that I could do on Zoom.
Yeah. That would be a lot of fun. And maybe individual teaching. I don't know if you do you do one-on-one teaching of poems?
I could. I have done a little bit. I don't know all. I mean, I don't write all the different formal forms of poetry. The sonnets I have written in the past, but I don't really teach that. I don't teach the different styles, although I've had some experience with them. But I really want people to find their own voice, to express themselves in different ways. I talk about a little bit of repetition in a poem can help to make it more like a poem, to choose the best words that you can. So first get your ideas down as simply as possible, and then go back and try to find better words or better ways of saying it, because a poet really says normal things in an unusual way. And it's something that people can start thinking about. How can I think about this differently? Like looking not, down on a tree or at a tree or up at a tree. You can come from it all different perspectives.
There you go. So anything more we want to plug before we go out on the show?
Oh, gee. The book is something that so many people have told me needs to be read by many more people.
There.
So I'm really happy. Thank you for this experience. And I hope that some listeners will choose to look it up. Passion and Provocation, Selected Poems by Judith Partelow, Amazon, and actually there's an ISBN, and you can get it at any bookstore, independent bookstores or whatever, by looking at that ISBN. So it's on my website as well.
It's been wonderful to have you on. Thank you very much for coming.
Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a joy. Thank you.
Thank you. And you made me think maybe I should try writing poems again. I have. It's been a while. I usually write a lot of long form stuff because I never shut up. That's probably why I'm a podcaster. But I should probably try writing some poems again. I have one or two of the original ones from 4th grade. It's so funny how I typed them. They're probably covered in what was that? Whiteout? Was it whiteout? Was that what it was called?
Oh yeah.
Remember the thing you'd have to correct, And,
yeah.
You didn't have that. You don't have that on your cell phone. I mean,
we had it first as erasers on our pencil.
Oh yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. Sit there and scrub it. And you get the wrong letter, so they'd bleed over, and you're like, "Oh, damn it!" Mm-hmm. Now I've just got a mess. There were sometimes when I pull the paper out of the typewriter for some of the stuff I'd write, and it would have so much of that whiteout stuff that it would weigh like half a pound.
That's right. Now you can just back up and
just
delete. But it's good to also do handwriting first. That sometimes brings about more from you than if you're sitting down and trying to type it. Although I finally do go to the computer and type it out, and I like to look at it in different ways. But really getting it down by handwriting sometimes opens up a lot.
Yeah, just get it onto the page. I call it puke onto the page. I just bleed it all out, blow it all out there on the page, and then edit later. And some people try and edit it as word for word as they go, and I'm like, just put it down and then edit it later. You're going to edit it later a million times anyway. But sometimes I'll see people bogging down the flow of that inspiration.
That's true.
And if I take too much time to muck with something that I've had the idea on, I'll usually lose like the keywords of the concept. Yeah.
Just get it down really, really as fast as you can, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you can't do, good typewriter skills. I used to have a partner that I would watch henpeck his one finger to do our invoices. And I remember thinking, God, that typewriter class was actually the most important class I took in school. It was the most valuable.
That was for me. I did, and I earned a lot of money in college typing people's papers.
Oh, did you really? Wow, I should have went to college and made some money off of it.
Yeah, it was an after school, one class that you could take, and boy, that really has held me in good stead the rest of my life.
I used to do all our invoices and billing every 2 weeks for a company, and I just bang it out because I, learned about 12 key or something like that, 10 key, whatever, typing, And my friend had gone to typewriter class, and so my business partner, so he would henpeck. So my billables would take an hour, maybe an hour and a half. It would take 3 hours. I don't feel so bad for him because I just watch him and I'm just, that looks so painful what you're doing right there, buddy. So go to typewriter class, kids. It's important. Probably still not important. When I went to school, they taught us typewriter class, leather shop, wood shop, and metal shop, because that was really important in the age of AI to have. So there you go.
Of course, now they have keyboarding. That's what it's called.
Is that what it's called? Keyboarding?
Keyboarding, yeah.
Oh, because you still have to learn the 10
key,
whatever it's called, the QWERTY typewriter keyboard way. The other thing I see is these street poets. We've had a couple on the show. I've taken pictures of some that are running around in downtown. They have street poets. They'll sit on the street, little table, and they got one of those older style desks, and they'll sit there and pound it out and charge people a little bit of money and give them some little doodads. It's kind of cool.
I know. I think that's really great. I have some friends that do that. It's to just try to get a sense of what a person's like, and in a few minutes and type out a poem for them. You can do that. You can do a little portrait of somebody with words.
It's really interesting. Yeah. Thank you very much, Judith, for coming on the show. Give us your .coms as we go out.
JudithPartelow.com. And Partelow is Partelow.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. We certainly appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it too. Thank you so much, Chris. It's been a real pleasure.
You too. Thank you. And folks, order up her book wherever fine books are sold. It's called Passion and Provocation, Selected Poems, and her other works as well. You can find there on Amazon. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
All right, Judith, great show. Wonderful job.